You know, this week I've just finished reading a 300-year-old storybook. It's Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. It's not an allegorical tale like the other famous books of the time, and it's startlingly realistic. But like a great deal of fiction of any time, it is unconsciously revealing of the social norms, the values of the time. And one thing that struck me in the book is the attitude to slavery. If you haven't read the original, you won't know that when he was cast away on his desert island, Robinson Crusoe was in charge of a slaving expedition. His fellow plantation owners in Brazil have sent him to West Africa to get more slaves because they're short of labour for their sugar plantations. In the book, on his lonely island, he does reflect on his Christian values, but not really about slavery. Slavery is okay. It's hard to imagine a book like that with such an inconsistency of values being published anywhere nowadays. I promise you this is relevant. I'll come back to it in a moment. I am here for the Christian campaign for nuclear disarmament. In many years of working to end nuclear weapons, one incident stands out. A seemingly wise person in a seemingly wise meeting said, "Look, nuclear weapons exist." I think she meant face up to it. We have to live with them. And I realised that the core of my problem as a disarmament campaigner was the pervasive idea that nuclear weapons had to exist, that we were stuck with them forever, that they cannot be uninvented. That's a silly word, really. It's nonsense. It's a nonsense that stems from a popular misunderstanding of science and technology. It actually takes a vast amount of engineering to make a nuclear weapon. For many years, humanity knew of the possibility, and then in the stress of World War II, a truly vast project resulted in the first nuclear weapons. You know the rest of the story. The vast project continues at a vast cost. But it does not have to. We can decide not to do it. It's interesting that official backing for nuclear power has always been partly dependent on the need for materials and also for expertise to enable us to make nuclear weapons. Otherwise, we struggle to maintain the technology. Where is the expertise for something people don't want to do? Where is the money for something that is militarily useless? Yes, we can decide not to do it. Nuclear disarmament can be done. And of course, it must be done. Hiroshima seemed to end World War II, but the consequences are still very much with us. Having got used to obliterating cities overnight, we dealt with one in a few seconds and another the same way 3 days later. And then peace? No. The terrible logic of deterrence soon led to mutually assured destruction and a continuous escalation of destructive power. Kilotons became megatons, and the two bombs begat thousands. That was effectively a million-fold increase in less than 40 years. Some people now rejoice that with common sense and the need to dismantle a dangerous rusting stockpile, we're now down to only a few thousand, equivalent to maybe only 40,000 Hiroshimas. Alongside climate change, nuclear weapons are the other existential threat to humanity, just as serious and possibly more urgent, but actually easier to solve. The catastrophe of nuclear war, like any event with a finite possibility, must happen sometime, unless nuclear weapons are abolished. And that's really helpful. We are sharing our planet with so much destructive power ready to be used that by accident or design we have come close to nuclear war on average once every 3 years. And yet, in the nuclear weapon states, we are left with a collective mindset in favour of nuclear weapons. It amounts to a collective, only partly conscious despair. So to do nothing, to go on as we are, is above all a sin against hope. What we desperately need is hope, active hope. Not that we're really short of it. If hope implies perseverance, then we're famous for it. Christian CCND recently had a 60th birthday. We're very proud of it, aren't we? Along with Pax Christi and all the other peace organisations, we've not been idle in all that time. All this work is beginning to bear fruit. In 2017, ICAN, that's the International Coalition of Anti-Nuclear Weapons Groups, was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for its role in developing the UN Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. We all had a share in earning that prize. It didn't make much publicity in this country. In fact, I learned about it from my nephew from Canada. He sent me a text. He said, "Is this you?" he said. It's about ICAN. Just got the Nobel Peace Prize. That's how I heard about it. The text of the treaty was signed by 122 nations, and so far 66 nations have ratified the treaty. That means they agree it in their parliament and join the treaty, and they become states party to the treaty, and that's brought it into force in international law. By its very nature, it begins to put pressure, moral and practical, on the nuclear weapon states to join the treaty by committing to disarm according to a timetable. As citizens of one of the nuclear weapons states, we have an important role to play, and the treaty gives us a clear framework now to work in. For example, ICAN has appealed to all cities and any other kind of local government to publicly declare support for, and as far as they can, compliance with the treaty. Hundreds of cities, towns and local authorities throughout the world have passed local resolutions in support of the treaty. Manchester was the first to do so in the UK and has since been followed by 24 other local authorities. To see the full list of supportive towns and cities around the world, visit ICAN website. It's called icanw.org. And write to your local councillors to explain the idea. Write as if your town will be proud to be part of it. And they will be. This is big. This is global. This is active hope. You know, one other thing to mention is that it's mostly in the nuclear weapon states that local authorities and cities and so on have been in the lead in this movement, because it's like another centre of decision process where people can say, how can we ensure the health of our local people if they're in danger of destruction in this way? If you look, France, which is one of the most nuclear countries to my mind, there are very many cities there. In the USA, there's places like New York and even the state of California, which is astonishing really. And in the UK, I think the Welsh National Assembly is on the list, so that's a country really. So we will make the world very much safer and free up immense resources for tackling the real problems by abolishing nuclear weapons. Abolition has to be forever, otherwise it's ultimately meaningless. It means no going back, no more nuclear weapons. How can that be achieved? Well, this is our part, the part where we, as Christian people, have a particular contribution to make. Because it will be the moral rejection of nuclear weapons by all of humanity which ensures that we can never collectively go back to them. There is indeed a close analogy with the abolition of slavery. Good Christian people were able to demonstrate that selling and keeping slaves was totally inconsistent with all the other standards that we live by. Now the world can see it. Individuals may fail, but slavery as an institution will never be acceptable. Nuclear weapons are the easiest weapons to detect, and so maybe not so hard to abolish once we agree to get on with it for the right reasons. Their creation and now their abolition could not be done by individuals. It has to be a very big project, a collective undertaking made possible by active hope. Thank you.